the one pill theory isn't the way it works. Well, don't you have one pill and it fixes it? No, it doesn't work that way. It's a combination of all these things put together. Welcome to the Health Quest Podcast, your guide to God's will for good health. Hello, my name is Dr. Sal, and I've been a practicing surgeon for well over 30 years. And my goal for each episode is that you'll be able to have your mind transformed to God's design for good health and affect the way that you eat and live. If you're new here, we release a new episode every week, and if you enjoy the content, would you leave us a good review? Because it really helps our ratings and allows us to reach out to more people, hopefully in turn to help them and change their ways. Thank you for your support. And on today's episode, we'll be talking about telomeres. Let's dive right into today's Health Quest. So what are telomeres? It's interesting because telomeres are the end parts of our DNA. And what's interesting is that when we're young, these telomeres are very long. But as our cells divide and we make new cells, especially as we start to age, these telomeres get shorter and shorter and shorter. Now, the objective of the telomeres is to really protect the genetic machinery. That means the epigenome and the DNA itself. As the telomeres get shorter over time, that's when we start to age and we become more susceptible to diseases. Now, there are a lot of factors as to why we age. I mean, our stem cells start to burn out, our proteins start folding over, and they're not as effective. DNA mutations, being exposed to chemicals, radiation, certain detrimental toxins that over time start to break down the genetic machinery as well as affect the energy producing mitochondria in the cells. If we don't produce enough energy or fuel for the cell components to function optimally, the cells start to break down. So the telomeres help us and they protect the DNA from breaking down or causing mutations, which can eventually result in cancers. What we noticed is during the COVID period, and it's fascinating that during certain episodes in human history, we are able to identify things that we didn't know about before. If we go back to the 1980s, when the HIV virus started to affect our community, in fact, our nation and other parts of the world, we realized that people that eventually seroconverted into AIDS developed these cancers and these disorders, which was not usual for a normal person to develop. And we began to realize that when your immune system is compromised, you become much more susceptible to a variety of different cancers. So having a strong and balanced immune system is what protects us from having a cell that becomes mutated, transforms into a cancer, and then our immune system goes off and attacks it and eliminates it before it starts to replicate to a point where it overwhelms the immune system and then it consumes us. Well, telomeres in one respect is we're starting to realize is that this tail end of the DNA that begins to shorten as we age, we lose the protection of the DNA, which now doesn't allow the DNA or the epigenome to allow the DNA to function optimally, where we could produce the proteins necessary to build the immune system and to regulate the neurotransmitters. And so we're much more susceptible to these disorders. What we discovered is, as I was saying earlier, during the COVID, that, one would say, well, Dr. Sal, you're talking about individuals that were obese, that were at much higher risk from dying from a cytokine storm that was caused by the COVID virus. And that was true because we described in that episode how their immune system is completely out of balance And when you go into cytokine storm, it just literally throws it completely out of whack, and the immune system starts to attack the lung tissue, destroys it, and then that's how these people were dying from respiratory arrest and also causing some other issues in the body as well. Well, what we discovered from that is that there were young people that were dying that a lot of people thought they were healthy. Well, they weren't overweight. They didn't have any medical problems. Well, we're now starting to discover that a lot of these people actually had shortened telomeres in their DNA, which then didn't protect them from this raging virus, which caused this immune chaos or havoc that it did that would eventually result in the demise of so many people. And so we're starting to realize that this telomere that protects us from all these disorders, as it starts to shorten as we age, now makes us more susceptible. So what can we do about it? How can we try to improve our lifespan? But more so than that, how do we maintain the quality of our life? Well, if you remember from one of our previous episodes on genetics, we talked about the epigenome. And if we can modify the epigenome by the foods that we eat, the supplements that we consume, what we get exposed to, and how we can protect ourselves from that, like the toxins that we're exposed to, by detoxing our body even a couple times a year, helps us immensely. By eating certain foods that keeps our liver functioning optimally so that these toxins don't build up on our body and wreak havoc on our metabolic system and our endocrine system as well, we begin to live a much healthier life, but with much better quality. You don't want to be 75 or even 80 years old in a wheelchair with Alzheimer's or dementia and having other health issues and on multiple medications. That's no way to live. That's not how God wanted us to live. I've seen people, especially women in their 80s in Europe, that would walk a quarter of a mile to go do their grocery shopping, and then they would carry their groceries back. These are 82, 83-year-old women. There's places in the world, such as northeast portion of Pakistan, known as the Hunza region, where if you die at the age of 92, it's like dying at 62 here in the United States. These people live well over 100 years old. Of course, they're in the mountains. They're not exposed to any factories or pollutants. They don't have chemicals in the ground. They grow everything naturally and organic. They eat certain foods that literally protects them from cancer. In fact, cancer is almost unheard of in that society. So there is that so-called area, the blue zone, like in the portion of the Mediterranean, where people that live on these certain islands in Greece and in Italy that live well up into their 90s and 100 years old. Okinawa is the same way. It's the foods that they eat, the type of activities that they do. So much different than our lifestyle here in the United States. There are certain things that we can do to help improve the quality of our life, but also protect the telomeres from breaking down as the cells start to divide. And your B vitamins are very important, especially niacin, which is vitamin B3. Years ago, Dr. Abramson wrote a book back that extended to his research back in the 50s and 60s. The book came out in the 1970s that high levels of niacin help generate energy at the level of the mitochondria, but then it turns into a product called nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. Now, the problem with niacin, especially at high dosages, is it causes this flushing effect, which can be reduced if you take a little bit of aspirin with it, but you can't keep taking aspirin every time you take these high dosages of niacin, because then you're going to start taking too much aspirin, and that can have some detrimental effects too as well. So now there are vitamin supplements out there like NMN, which is nicotinamide mononucleotide, which doesn't cause the flushing but helps us build the NAD, or nucleotide adenine nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide in the mitochondria, which generates the ATP, which is the fuel that's used as energy to run all these systems in the cell. And by running them optimally, they also help protect the telomeres. this is a wonderful thing because it not only by protecting those telomeres and taking these supplements, of course, you got to eat a healthy diet. You can't just go out there and eat fast foods and say, well, I'm going to take these supplements, because the one pill theory isn't the way it works. Well, don't you have one pill and then fix it? No, it doesn't work that way. It's a combination of all these things put together. And so a good, healthy diet, a lot of fruits and vegetables, nuts, berries, taking some of these supplements can protect the telomeres, reduce our chances of developing these disorders, and on top of that, can give us a long lifespan, a healthy quality life. These are some of the things that God put in our system and for us to discover. Once we discover it, we can now alter the way we do things. Really, we have to, because our society has changed so dramatically. But yet, if you take a look at these people from other parts of the world, even centuries ago, and how they were able to survive infections and diseases using natural products. Remember, God put all the antidotes in the food, but it's the quality of the food. We're talking about foods that are not tampered with chemicals or man-made products or genetically modified foods or vegetations. God had it all planned out. And this is why you got to trust God in saying, hey, we got to go back to these old ways to maintain our health. The objective is to try to stay off the medications as much as possible and to live a good quality life. So taking NMN, which you could buy you can get that now over the internet, or you can get them at the health food stores, and supplementing that with your diet. But of course, eating a good, healthy diet will extend life and improve the quality of your life, as well as protect you from a lot of these diseases. And so one would think, well, Dr. Sal, if these telomeres are shortening and now making us more susceptible to aging and the disorders that come along because our bodies are now breaking down and we're much more susceptible to these disorders as we age, is there a way to lengthen the telomeres and protect us from aging, or slow the aging process down and protect us even more? There is, and it's been suspected through some studies with some mice, that the medication called tamoxifen, which they use for breast cancer for women, and it's to control the hormone estrogen from exacerbating or worsening the breast cancer, they've shown that it actually lengthens the telomeres. The problem with that is this, and here's the concern. Now, with that, it also helps to prevent further cancers. However, there were some evidence that if these telomeres are sticking out too much and they touch another chromosome, that it may stimulate or turn on that chromosome to produce an abnormal protein, which now can be detrimental. So my whole objective in trying, instead of trying to do things that, we're going to try to control our DNA, which we are by the foods that we eat. But the objective, and my point is in lining our will with God's will, is to eat the foods that keep us healthy, that keeps our normal system the way it was supposed to operate. And by doing that, that's why making the recommendation that the epigenome, if that's maintained well, then our bodies will naturally take care of itself the way it's supposed to, which now makes us more resistant to infections. It makes us resistant to these diseases. It keeps us much healthier, and that's how we do live longer. We are really genetically designed to live 120 years. So, when we're dying in our 60s and early 70s, when we still have the potential for another 20, 30 years, at least get to 100. And that's happened. There are people that have lived that long, but we're not seeing it now. In fact, I'm beginning to see people in the hospitals that are dying at a much younger age, And like we talked about, the obesity issues that are now affiliated with the type 2 diabetes, the neurologic disorders that are becoming more and more prevalent. All of these things that we can basically avoid or prevent and put it down further down the road, or not even get it, and just live to have a good quality life. So with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on our episode. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a good review and visit our website and social media accounts to connect with us more. If you like what you see and you want to get access to the sources of research that we used in this episode, it'll be available in the show notes and the description, as well as on the webpage. As for now, I'm Dr. Sal. Have a great day, and God bless.